Sorry guys, this email is so long already, and I haven't had time for an intro. I know I haven't done one in ages, but you probably don't listen anyway, so it's fine. Sorry from where I left off my last live email. I woke up and went on a run. However, my headphones died halfway through, and that made me realize just how much I have come to appreciate listening to audiobooks as I run. The end of the run was majorly arduous. I then got home and had some quiet time before going to work at 12, and I finished the last live email at work. After that, I stopped by home and then headed straight to Dazbog to meet with Karina, because she graciously extended me an invite. However, upon entering the door of Dazbog's coffee shop, the piercing gaze of two baristas compelled me to purchase a drink. Though, I had entered with no such intent. So I did that. I got a small, nutty Irishman, and it was actually pretty good. Could just be that, I haven't had sugar, and I really doubt, it was just that. But maybe. It was still good, though. For the next hour and a half, Karina and I worked on our respective things. She's trying to read 23 books a year since it's 2023, and I still maintain that it's going to get really hard to keep up with when she's 80. But while she read, I debated Alan, which actually worked out pretty well, since I wasn't able to focus at the coffee shop as well as I would at home, at home anyway. And it was good to talk to Alan, as debates definitely keep my attention. Once I got home, I worked on one of my philosophical papers about divine simplicity and made some good progress. I then watched Phineas and Ferb with the family while eating some canes, which my lovely mother was gracious enough to purchase for me. And then I went into a basement and did a voice recording of that massive Life of the email, the last one. I just watched Tim Mcgrew after that, and I went to bed. The next morning, I decided to not do quiet time, but rather do this new non-comfort dental dentist thing, that I decided that the non-comfort dental dentists are better dentists. My face was poked and prodded, and my teeth were scraped with metal instruments. And it turns out, I don't have a cavity, even though I thought I did, so that was pleasant, but nevertheless surprising. After that, I went to work, where I attended what I think would best be called group therapy. See, one of the professors in the HS department committed suicide, and everyone was pretty rocked by that, understandably. And the whole department came together for this memorial service, where a licensed therapist kind of talked people through and helped them work through some stuff. It felt like a really big group therapy session where the therapist lady was the leader. It was definitely strange, but kind of cool. I mean, the advice the therapist gave seemed pretty hollow, but the fact that our department, put this event on was surprisingly cool, and also, not expected. People were willing to share in such a large group and to be fairly vulnerable, which defied my expectations. So yeah, it was odd, but overall a good experience. I didn't know the guy very well, personally, so the news of his suicide didn't hit me too hard, but some people clearly knew him very well, and there were a few Christians there that really, were pretty vocal, especially one of the professor, especially because the professor who committed suicide was a Christian as well. So yeah, it was an interesting event to attend for an hour and 15 minutes. After the group therapy session, I read through a frankly confusing SCP article on metaphysical grounding. Not gonna lie, I don't think I got much out of it. And then I worked on my physical papers once I got home and continued to do so until Joe arrived, and we played some Magic, which was fun. We did that until William, the great Volley, finally did call, and then William and I talked about philosophy stuff, which I definitely enjoyed. I swear, William is like a little me, but possibly a little bit more well-rounded little me. I just identify with him actually so much. I love his being. I wish I had a me when I was a little me. I finally worked on my philosophical papers more before I went to bed. The next morning I woke up, I went on a good solid run, then did quiet time in the morning, after which I got to work on my philosophical papers some more. From there I went to work and got free pizza, which was a sweet deal since it was, a grad student party for something. After that, I kind of awkwardly sat through. After I awkwardly sat through that, I spent more time working on my philosophy papers before going home. Upon reaching home, I spent some time with the family because watching Phineas and Ferb, some time with the family with watching Phineas and Ferb, and then I caught up with Jordan. Wish I could be in New Zealand for that man right now. After talking with Jordan, I took a bath and watched some anime before going to sleep. The next day was Saturday, so no school. Woo! Instead of doing quiet time, I went on a call with Tim Mcgrew, who's a pretty well-known apologist, if you haven't heard of him. He specializes in historical data pertaining to the resurrection and honestly does some pretty good work, unlike a lot of apologists. So yeah, basically I just hopped on a Zoom call with him and asked him some questions that I was having, and he gave decent responses. I feel like the answers were a little hand-wavy, kind of gestures to more robust responses, but that's fair. I mean, I'm asking him some pretty deep questions in an hour Zoom call, so that made sense. Anyway, it was a decent talk. I asked his subordinate dude if Tim would be willing to have an email conversation, which he did not, he 100% did not even acknowledge my question. And then, since his silence persisted, I sent Tim himself an email asking the same thing, but he didn't respond either, so I'm pretty sure that's a no. Still, you would think that they would have the decency to respond and be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. But nope, just ghosting. I gave them both very polite emails, so I don't really think the silence was warranted. But oh well, I guess that's the world we live in now, isn't it? People don't confront their problems if they don't have to. Anyway, as soon as I finished that call, I began to fulfill my previously arranged obligation to help Dad lay flooring. So we were remodeling the mini house Charlie used to rent, and thus Dad decided we should put in new floors, so me and him basically spent the whole day working on that. I did take a break in the middle to pick up books for classes, which was largely uneventful. So yeah, we started 10ish and finished at 5ish, so a good amount of work. And overall the kitchen is done, and we made some non-negligible progress. Once the sun went down, the family finally convened for some food and Phineas, and promptly I joined in the traditional Saturday night Minecraft call, which was average. But I did tie Liam in an anime quiz, so I think I'm getting better. After that went down, it was pretty late, so I just went to sleep. The morning thereafter, I went to Southgate for church. After we had these fancy funeral sandwiches. And while granted, their having been a funeral is sad, it did give us nice free sandwiches, so just saying. We then, of course, played Magic, till 1 or something like that, and Joe and I devised long ago, we did a group hangout that included Karina. There wasn't much of a plan or purpose in say hangout, we just did a bunch of random things. But to my delight, we went to the library and played a game of hand-brain chess. It turns out there isn't much the brain does in that situation, because there's quite a few times where I was like, oh yes! And my respective hand did not get it at all. But regardless, it was a good time. After playing that, the peoples then dropped me off, and I went home wherein I ate food and worked on my philosophy papers once again until Noah and Melissa arrived. See, I always seem to forget how interesting Noah and Melissa are. Like, they're genuinely abnormal people, but in a good way. So yeah, got to talk with them until about 8, and then went to CSU to meet Alan, and we whiteboard fought until like 11 or so. Here's pictures of those lovely adventures. Whiteboards. Whiteboards. Once I got home, I prepared for the next day of school, because it was the first day back to school. Tuesday was the first day of school, and I would say overall the first day went pretty well. I did go to the wrong lab, however, which was awkward because I got to class late, but overall no biggie. However, I did get behind on that same lab as I had some registration stuff I had to sort out, and I needed to catch up on work for that. However, overall, I would say the most off-putting experience was sitting through the intro of ECE again, since this is my first class to ever retake in my life, and it's kind of just an odd experience. Like, I don't know, you kind of feel like the professors that teach your class would do it in some unique way, like you're special. But no. You go to the same class again, and it's the same examples, same points, everything's just the same. And you realize, no, you're not special. You're just one face in a million to them. Also, serious deja vu, like, holy cow, kind of trippy. Anyway, the perk is the intro stuff I know really well, so I didn't need to pay attention. I was able to do other homework. Otherwise, school was pretty normal. I got a new coworker, and she seems nice. The day was just pretty long. As soon as I got home, I went over to play Magic with Joe. However, at the start of the time, Noah and Joe were just working on building decks and stuff, so not super eventful. After that, I had some of the James's good food, and we kind of just did random things. We played some Brawl, tried some Minecraft, but I didn't really work out really well, so I ended up playing speed games of chess with Joe. He beat me the first time, but every game after that I won. And chess.com has this thing where it removes pieces to make the game more even between differently rated players, so me winning was actually kind of rewarding, because I won, like, sort of fair and square. It was about that time that Ben was rattling off ideas what we should do and no one was moving from the brawl, so I decided to head home, in part because nothing was going to happen and in part because I was tired. However, on the way home, I had a strong sense of regret for not going drifting with Caleb. See, he had asked earlier and I told him that I was worried I might push my tire too hard, which is true, and to be fair, I'm still a little bit shell-shocked from my previous drifting mistakes. But as I was driving home, I was thinking, what the heck? It's the Phoenix. If it's not for taking risks or having fun, what is my car for? Like, my car is not nice or anything. If there ever were a car destined for drifting, it is the Phoenix. So while yes, I'm concerned it could break, I think it's just the wrong call to not do the things you love because there's risks involved. So yeah, in the future, I think I'm going to go drifting if I get the opportunity. Once I got home, I kind of just enjoyed the snowy landscape and drank some tea. I really do like snow. There's something about it that just entrances me. After that, I finished what may have been the most boring anime yet, and I went to sleep. The next day, I woke up to a snow day being announced, which on one hand was exciting news because, snow day. But on the other hand, it's kind of like I literally just got back from a month-long break yesterday. So in that sense, it was kind of disappointing. Especially because it's not like the professors just, remove the coursework if you have a snow day. Rather, they just make sure you make it up. So in the sense, snow days kind of feel like they're like you're being forced to take on debt. Sure, you get money now, but it's not free, and you're going to, bust your butt to pay it off later. So yeah, for that reason, I was much less psyched about the snow day. However, since I was forced to take the day off, I figured I might as well enjoy it, so I spent it with Neo, since he was back in town. Hence, I suited up and walked over to his place, and I must say, I really do enjoy walking in the snow, especially listening to my favorite instrumental songs. So yeah, once I got to Neo's, me and him walked to King Supers to get food, and we just kind of caught up as we did so. Since he had been on their big Israel trip since break started, he'd only recently gotten back. Thus, once we returned, we had pizza, blackberries, croissants, and popcorn. I showed him and Sydney the first 3 episodes of Moriarty Patriot, which seems to be both their favorite anime so far. Neo and I also attempted to try and power through the rest of Halo 2 on Legendary, which, man, I forget how stinking hard that is. While we were doing so, Sawyer, Sydney's sibling, showed up wanting to make wanting Neo's help in fixing their car. See, the heater had gone out, and for some incomprehensible reason, they decided it had to be fixed right now. In the snow, mind you. And of course, having worked in the cold, I'm like, what are you thinking? And second, I'm like, wait, why would you start right before it gets dark? But despite my very wise protestations, that they should wait for more opportune time, especially because it's just their heater was out. It's not like something critical to their car's functioning. They nevertheless persisted and attempted to fix it nonetheless. Now this, of course, I found vexing because it was manifestly stupid, and despite me telling them it was stupid, they did it anyway. But perhaps more importantly, they had interrupted me and Neo's hangout time to do a stupid thing. It was a very sucky situation overall. But Neo helped them anyway, which I don't think was necessarily the best thing to do, as that communicates it's okay if you make decisions that defy reason because someone else with a big heart will suffer the consequences instead of you. But he did, and since I didn't have anything else to do, I tried to help as well. However, we weren't able to actually finish the job as a bolt got stripped in the end, and it ended up being like 45 minutes of car work in the cold for nothing, which of course I knew would happen, but whatever. And so when I left, things were in a worse position than they started, and Sawyer had to get the car fixed to mechanics anyway, at least to my knowledge. So yeah, the whole situation was just lame, and of course, being right is, little in terms of consolation prizes in scenarios like that one. Once I got home, I watched some Face and Ferb with a fan before finishing the writing of my philosophy papers. I must say that this series of papers is probably my finest yet. They've withstood some serious criticism, and I think they did really well. Then finally, that night, I did some health research stuff. I found out you can get your DNA tested and checked for all known diseases, and that's pretty cool, but it costs like $300, who knows if I'll actually do it. The day thereafter, I woke up at 9 and did school stuff until 7 at night, which was a pretty full day. I worked in the EMEC, did my lab, went to work twice, the second time of which I ripped a giant hole in my butt of my pants, so I had to ask my boss if I could go home and get new pants, which was awkward. But then upon retrieving new pants, I proceeded to carry out my shift. Once I was done with school, I watched Mason Ferb with the fam, worked on some final touches on those big philosophy papers I mentioned before, and then I watched a bit of anime, and then ceased to consciously exist. I slept in the following morning, a bit before getting a paper signed for an assignment that was working for the EMEC, instead of doing my morning routine. I'll just tell you now, at this point, there's no way I can call it quiet time. Exercise or prayer journaling, nope. Oh, no way you can call it exercise, prayer journaling, or quiet time my morning routine anymore. Like, I've actually done those things once this entire semester. Every single other morning I've been at the EMEC doing a math tutoring or in class. It has majorly sucked. And I've been overall pretty disappointed with how the rhythm of this semester has turned out to be. Maybe I'll go on a rant about that later. For now, all that matters is I didn't get to go to my math tutoring, or I didn't get to do my morning routine, and that will be true indefinitely. Anyway, I went to class, worked on some stolid work stuff, which I must say maybe be my favorite skill I've learned this semester. There's actually so many cool things you can do with SolidWorks. It's like very fantastic. I then barely made it to work on time to get the leftover guac and chips for my dinner thing that they held. I then went to more classes, did homework for an hour, and then went straight to meet up with Caleb, where he helped me sort out the snowboard rental, because I decided to join the Myers and James for snowboarding/skiing. Basically, the story behind this was, Benj, do you want to go skiing? Me, nah, it's too expensive. Benj, all right. Me 24 hours later. You know what? I changed my mind. Benj, nice. See, what's surprising about this story is how unsurprising it is. But no, actually, I did say no at the start because skiing is cold and expensive and it would monopolize my one free day a week. But then I thought, about it before. I was like, how often do I get to do things with people like this that I enjoy? And so for the sake of novelty, I decided to join them. It was also for the sake of novelty that I decided to learn how to snowboard. See, I'd skied a few times in the past and, the skill set maps on rollerblade pretty one-to-one, so it probably would have been decent. But I'd never snowboarded before. And snowboarding looks 100% cooler, clear choice. So yeah, Caleb helped me rent my board, and we wandered around this massive mall place I didn't even know existed before. There's a Ferris wheel inside the mall. Like, what the heck's up with that? And then I bought some goggles unnecessarily before Caleb and I drove back and ended up attending Friday pizza movie night, because 3 seconds before the critical turn, Caleb demanded, "Your house or Joe's?" And my split-second brain was like, "Joe's!" And that was it. So we went to Joe's house. At Joe's, we played Brawlhalla and a bit of chess, as well as Joe beat me. And I was very confused, only to find out that he's been using Stockfish, a chess computer, and then I felt better. I then tried to beat Stockfish and lost, as one might expect. Once I got home, I had a mini debate with Alan, and then finally watched an episode of anime and went to bed. The next morning, I got up way too early and piloted James' car for skiing. We all kind of chilled on the way up there, though at one point I joined in on a philosophy call, only to lose cell service as things were just getting good, so that was unfortunate. I then learned how to snowboard, and Benj and I stuck together as we traversed the course many times. It's honestly pretty surprising how fast you can go from, I've never done this before, to, hey, I'm actually not too bad. Like, our improvement was pretty massive. However, of course, the cost was a very bruised butt and many sore wrists, so I can't say it was all pleasant memories. Still, I had a good time. On the way back from snowboarding, Mr. James dropped Caleb and I off at Wendy's, the only restaurant that would do, of course, and then we met up with Ben, who had driven up to Wyoming to meet us. After we all got some food, we drove the rest of the way to the Hobo Hot Springs, where we sat in hot springs and observed many drunk people do many dumb things. Honestly, not gonna lie, drunk people are great entertainment, like comedy gold. However, this one woman just hopped in a tiny pool with us and got way too close and personal for my taste, and had absolutely no sense of social etiquette, which was great when I got to, watch it, but it was less great when I got to experience it. But other than her, it was a good time. The spot in the river was perfect. That's not always been the case, but it was really nice that time. However, by the time we were on our way home, I was wiped. I had Ben drop me off at home instead of the Jameses, where I could have, driven home, because I was just that tired. I was like, I might crash if I drive home. Thus, next morning, I skipped church to catch up on sleep before spontaneously hitting up Alan, Neo's friend, after Neo turned me down, to walk with me to the Jameses to pick up my car. I really hadn't premeditated it, but it worked out great. I got to know Alan a lot better, and it was good to have company for the walk, since it was like a 45-minute walk and all. However, once we reached the car, I had the brilliant idea to open the sunroof, forgetting it had just snowed, and I proceeded to spill snow all over Alan and I. So that was a pro move. Anyway, after chaperoning Alan back to his house, my car was then returned to my convenient possession, and I ate some food before we went to Neil and Sydney's, where they, plus Alan and John, gave a very lengthy description of their trip to Israel. And I mean, to be fair, I literally asked for it, but still it was very long and a bit painful toward the end. However, it was also clear that it drudged up some things that hadn't been worked through as a result of them spending 2 or so weeks together. And so after the talk finished, I tried to help them work through it all. I have to say, it was just another one of those things that made me appreciate how well the squad synergized and dealt with conflict. It wasn't perfect, but we actually did so well compared to the average group of young adults. After helping facilitate that conversation, I then asked Sydney to cut my hair, and she obliged. I then went home and helped Grace with math before proceeding to have a debate with Alan over Discord. And when that ended, I went to sleep. I woke up early the next morning to do my time in the tool crib down in the EMAC, got some homework done during the time before going home, eating some food, and watching some anime. Then going to work and doing more homework. Of course, I then went to classes, and once those ended, I got food with Squad Noah and caught up with him a little bit. I then tried to work out... I tried to do homework, working while waiting for Ratio, but didn't really succeed. Then Alan and I hashed out some things for 5 hours. Here's our whiteboards of that. Boop. The next day was Tuesday, as it was the day of the ECE class, but thank goodness for this, our class was moved to Clark instead of Engineering 101, which was big bueno, because our old classroom was garbage. After classes, I went home, I watched a bit of anime, ate some food before doing more school and more work, and then doing the typical Tuesday night routine over at Joe's, aka Brawl and Magic. Wednesday was a bit unusual, as I had an advisor meeting in the morning. Oh, I also read Tim Mcgrew's stuff. See, apparently, he thought my question about the parousia was actually formidable because, while he didn't respond to any of my other questions, he sent me some resources on that. Thus, I read through one of those and sent him an email response and reply, and he still hasn't gotten back to me. It's been a month or so now, so I'm pretty sure there'll be no follow-up. I mean, I don't know why I expect anything more. He's an extremely well-known apologist, and the Majesty of Reason is definitely the exception in terms of making time to talk with people one-on-one. But still, I was disappointed. Anyway, after that, I responded to Majesty of Reason, ate some good old food, watched some good old anime, did work, went to my classes, and then after doing some homework, had canes and watched Phineas and Ferb with the family. Then, because it was Wednesday, I went over and hung out with Neo before going to Magic Club and then rounding out the day. See, the thing is, most often I don't enjoy going to Magic Club. It's just I do it because I'm the president, and thus I feel I have an obligation to. And the reason I don't enjoy it is because I either play a non-Vanifar deck and lose because my decks aren't valued at over $100 each, or I play Vanifar and sometimes win, but everyone accuses me of playing solitaire. It's like a lose-lose situation. Either I lose the game or I lose the people, and losing isn't my favorite thing to do. However, I don't mind losing as long as I'm playing with people I enjoy, but a lot of people at Magic Club aren't super well-rounded and wholesome people. They're nerds, a category of persons that are nefarious for not being the most charming demographic. And yes, I know what that says about me. And thus there's only a handful of people that I would actually want to play Magic with at Magic Club, and the odds are, even if I can play with one of them, I have to simultaneously play with 2 people I don't enjoy. So yeah, kind of an all-around bummer at times. Though to be fair, there are some notable exceptions. The next day, I was feeling the wear and tear of the week. However, I pushed through school and work like always and soldiers on. However, I did do something unusual. I went back to Anime Club. See, Hip Hop Dance, which happens at the same time as Anime Club, was canceled, and the Weebs were doing an intro competition, which, as you may have realized, I deeply enjoy. Thus, I attended. See, the funny thing, I was actually, originally part of the group that I was actually originally part of the group that I think literally won every round. Oh, I see. But I was like, nah, I want to win on my own. Thus, upon divorcing from their weebtacularness, I then proceeded to get a lot of seconds and thirds for the rest of the night. I placed in the top 3 for 4 of the 6 rounds, if I remember correctly, which definitely isn't bad for a group of 30 plus weebs. But still, I'm salty I never won. Regardless, though, I did have a good time. I then went and worked out, and after my workout, I got home, watched a bit of anime, and went to bed. The next morning, I got a little bit of extra sleep, which actually can make such a world of difference. Went and got Diffie Q tutoring for 2 hours, then ate some food, did homework. Was late to dynamics class because work was a hectic place for once and I lost track of time. I did more classes and then spent 2 hours in my computer lab doing SolidWorks stuff before finally getting home and watching a bit of anime before going to bed. The following day was a day of respite, as it was a Saturday, and thus I slept until 10 and did a bit of car maintenance, got groceries and gas before getting home and watching some anime. Thereafter, I carpooled with Joe to the Myers house as their parents were out of town, and thus it was just like a kids' board game night. We played some Seven Wonders, which was decent, but it just doesn't hold my attention all that well since it just feels so simple after playing so much Magic. Also, Joe and Ben were not paying attention at all. Sam was trying to explain the rules, but was very much struggling. They really are 12. After that, we then played some Magic, and I died super fast, and thus, while I was waiting, I invited Johanna to go on a snow walk with me, which I both regret and don't. I regret it because it was stupidly cold and I was not properly equipped for the elements, and thus the whole time I had to weigh the value of the conversation against my desire for warmth. But I don't regret it because it was the first time I've had deeper conversations with Johanna, and it was pretty interesting. She was able to answer some curiosities that I had, and I got to know her a bit more. It's certainly an odd phenomenon to watch people grow into being interesting. There's a point at which kids start thinking critically and stop being kids. Of course, before that point, they may be rational, but they just aren't interesting. Yet after that point, well, they're interesting. So yeah, I discovered Johanna was interesting, and that was cool. However, as epic as that discovery was, after the fourth loop around the neighborhood, my desire for warmth exceeded my desire for good conversation, and thus we went back inside. I played some more Magic before engaging in a game of hand-brain chess, though I think this time I was the hand. I made some really dumb mistakes, actually. But thankfully, Caleb became my brain, and we came back at the end of the night. After that, Caleb, Benj, and I all drove around and got Wendy's burgers and drinks. Man, those drinks are good. And then we picked up Joe and Ben and went drifting a bit before calling it a night at 2. Sunday, I attended church, and we all played Magic. I discovered my car had a vivacious coolant leak. The entire reservoir was empty just by driving home from church. Thus, I dumped another reservoir's worth in and headed to the weights, since I had, to get there somehow and didn't have time to fix it right now. Upon arriving, I got a 500 milligram dose of awkwardness. See, those gatherings used to be pretty lighthearted and natural, but now they're just so awkward. You can tell no one enjoys them, but they all come about a sense of duty and tradition. But man, it's hard to stress how awkward that room was. Like, it was tangible. Liquid, in fact. Every breath was a mixture of wanting to say something, just to end the silence, and stifling death, knowing that to do so would be to commit social suicide. So yeah, not the best experience. After that, I ended up over at Neo's for D&D character planning and food, plus the witnessing of Puss in Boots. It was actually a pretty decent movie. I would give it a 7 on the anime scale. I mean, don't get me wrong, not an anime, but given the anime movies animated movies I've watched as of late, it's pretty good. Once I got back, I then, with a lot of help from Neo, finished my character from the Star Wars campaign that I am now in. I've got to be honest, probably my favorite character mechanically I've ever played. He hits like a truck, does some 28 damage in a single turn, and because of a special feature, he can do it twice in a round. He's super good at long range, so I can sniper, and good at close range, so I can dagger. And he's stinking fast. He can do 240 feet in a turn, which means if he wants to, he can basically be anywhere on the map. As far as just mechanics of the build go, actual perfection. As for the personality, try to do something different and play like a quiet, suave character, but I don't think it's going so well. We'll have to see it through, though. Maybe I'll get the subtlety down and figure out how to roleplay him well. Regardless, I'm super stoked with that character build, and that was basically all that happened that night. After that, I just went home and watched an episode of anime and slept. The next day, I woke up to frost and chill, hardcore blessing the Lord. Holy cow, it was cold, -10 or something. I managed, despite the cold, to motivate myself to go to the gym and work out, which was good. At which point, I finished the Silent Planet audiobook and started a new audiobook. Now, before I move on to that, I would like to make it clear that William is full of lies. The book was mad at best, and none of the promised effects occurred. I'm still salty. Anyway, I started listening to this apparently classic book called The Book Thief, and while I don't know if it makes if it's classic, it was definitely odd. Maybe that's what makes it classic. You say things that are confusing and nonsensical, and then people are convinced there's some sublime meaning in every iota, and thus deem your work profound. I will say something like, I never liked the taste of blue, especially not with the pungent sound of grass. And I'm like, I get you're trying to be poetic and all, but I assure you blue does not have a taste. Trust me. I know differential equations. That's going to be my catchphrase from now on. So yeah, the whole book is kind of like that, but in this case, it's actually to my benefit. So, because when I get confused, I have to pay close attention and understand it. And that means I get 100% engrossed and forget I'm running. So in the end, it works out really well. Once I finished that, I then went home and had a quiet time, which was really nice. I started my day properly and did the usual gambit of activities. I then went to Ratio once again, and Alan and I fought it out. Here's a picture of those whiteboards. War. And then, with my brain suitably exhausted, in part because Alan was being mega stupid, I then went home and slept. Next morning was standard Tuesday. I did classes, did my DiffyQ lab, which I still think is dumb. Who needs a lab for a math class? Watched some food. Nope. That's what I said. Watched some food, ate some anime, and yeah, I did that intentionally. Gotta spice things up every once in a while. And then did CAD work, and then work, because before Joe picked me up, because my car, given the coolant leak, was out of commission. And we did Tuesday night stuff. The next morning, I went to math tutoring, which was very challenging for me to understand. I did the rest of the routine, with the small exception of, in dynamics, I got a guy to play chess with me, and I actually crushed him. And he has now moved seats, and I haven't seen him since. So yeah, maybe it didn't make a good impression. After dynamics was an oxymoron of an occurrence, a riveting math class. See, the day the professor decided to just, go all in the applications of differential equations, and actually was so cool. That class went by in a flash. I was actually glued to my seat, and left there being totally pumped to do math. I mean, sure, that only lasted until my next homework set, but still, it was really interesting. I then did homework till about 6 in the evening. I went to some event that bore no relevance to me whatsoever, but they were offering me free Chipotle, so I sat in through the event and did homework. However, even with me getting there early, there was nearly out of Chipotle by the time I arrived, and this I only got half a burrito and a ton of chips and guac. Still, I got a decent amount of food, so I'm not complaining. Once that ended, I got home and helped Dad move boxes before going to Magic Club and playing Magic till midnight, and then I temporarily died. Upon my resurrection, I discovered it was Thursday. Thus, I had classes, and I got to have an hour break since I switched my shift from Sophie, since it worked better with her. During that time, I reread Chapter 4 of Owen's book before going to EMAC for my lap. I then went to work, did some voice training with Sydney, and then showed up to Hip Hop Dance Club. I don't know. As of late, it's just been a lot of dance routines. I'm not sure how much like a bunch of dance routines is actually teaching me, if I've gained any like significant skill set when it comes to dancing per se. Like they haven't actually taught us how to do unchoreographed dance almost at all. I'm not sure I'll keep going. Like I feel like I've given it a pretty decent shot, having gone now for 6 months. Regardless, once I got home, I ordered myself a Wendy's burger and then watched one of the SAO movies in my dungeon. I really need to spend more time down there. It's such a cool space. It's just like I don't often have a cause to. I mean, I'm hardly ever home, much less like home and in my dungeon. Oh, and also Grace joined me for that movie, though she hasn't watched SAO, so I don't think it made any sense to her. Honestly, it was pretty good, and I was kind of surprised at the quality. The next morning, I did a shift in the tool crib for the EMEC. I got there with a bit of extra time between classes before going to work, and then, doing classes. After that, I just did small things like cleaning, laundry, all that jazz. After that, I went to Joe's and played chess with Noah before we all traveled to the pre-release at Griffin. It was Noah's first pre-release, but he forgot to register beforehand, which normally wouldn't be a problem, but the game store supplies cards never came, so they wouldn't just let anyone walk in and buy a box like they usually would. Thus, Noah didn't get to play, and it was super sad. Hence, we all kind of pitched in and gave him consolation prizes. Oh, and also Sam pulled a literal $60 card in his first try. It was super dumb. He actually just slurped all my good pulling luck. But yeah, Benj, Joe, and I all did pretty well. Joe actually got so close to winning it all, like one misplay away, and he's super salty about that loss. But yeah, it was actually a good time. The next day was Saturday, so in the morning I talked about my philosophy papers with Matt and Alan. Then, as soon as that ended, I drove up to Compton's Canyon to go join in some airsoft with Noah, Deep Voice Noah. That was actually a ton of fun. See, all the past airsoft games I played pretty cautious. I didn't really take risks because I didn't want to get shot, because it can seriously hurt. But with Alex 2.0 equipped, I was like, screw caution. And we just went for it. And man, I had so much fun. See, I've discovered that as long as you rush forward with confidence, even if someone else has strategically better positioning, if they're the cowering type, you just win. Like, it doesn't matter if they have spectacular cover, or they're up a 10-foot cliff, or if whenever you shoot in their general direction, they just hide, therefore they don't shoot back. Then you win. So yeah, it was great. I had some good rushes, and I gotta admit, I did I took some non-trivial amount of joy in their pain. Also, there were 2 rounds where the game mode was to protect the president, and thus 2 snipers got to hide in the canyon, and the president and his team have to try and advance past the snipers to win. And I found this actually fantastic hiding place. I was laying down a hail of BBs, and they had no idea where it was coming from. And I was shooting them for 100 shots. And then, I finally got a BB through their body wall and won. But the real win was just getting to pelt them with 99 BBs. And they just have to stand there and take it. It was actually fantastic. So yeah, overall, probably my favorite airsoft game so far. Once I got home, I jacked up my car, figured out that I had to try to figure out the coolant leak, and then took Mom and Dad's car to Alan's, Neo's, not my Alan's, mandatory party. I probably explained this before, so I won't go into that again. But Alan has to throw a party once a month or he'll get kicked out of his house. Seriously, I'm pretty sure it's part of the lease. So yeah, went there. There were a good number of people and played a bunch of Smash Bros. And Halo. Everyone was pretty evenly matched, honestly. And yeah, that ran until late, so once it ended, I just went and slept. The next morning, I had a pseudo quiet time and then proceeded to work on my car for 3 hours and 30 minutes. I did actually fix it, by the way, but I was kind of dumb. See, way back when I replaced my radiator, I bought the cheapest radiator sorts. And of course, as all the experts know, cheap is cheap. However, the radiator they gave me had a cross-threaded coolant plug. Now, of course, since I was young in my mechanic years, I didn't realize it was cross-threaded, and I just thought that the plug was different than my original radiator, and the sort of plug that only is supposed to go halfway in. Yeah, in hindsight, that was a dumb thing to think. I really have nothing to say in my defense. So yeah, ever since that, my car has leaked coolant at a very slow pace for 2 years or so, and I just accepted that fact. I just refill my reservoir periodically. However, when it got really cold, all coolant broke loose. See what I did there? And so, since I discovered that my plug had cross-threaded, I came up with a solution. Stuff a bunch of water-resistant tape into the hole. Actually. I wrapped the plug in Teflon tape, aka water-resistant tape, and then once I wrapped so much tape around the plug that it would barely fit, I just basically shoved it in there. And I mean, technically I threaded it in as far as it would thread, but same diff. And till this day, it works, so can't argue with the results. There's no way I'm touching that again, though. After I finished that car repair, I played this VR game where you have to make copies of yourself to power a tree with fruit. It wasn't bad. I did my taxes, and that was very easy. I don't know why everyone complains about taxes. And then thereafter, I sorted all my remaining anime recommendations into a list of shows I actually had access to and that were clean, and into a list of, watchable things. Then, to round out the night, I then played some more of my VR game. I made, it sound weird, but it's not actually that weird. I mean, I think my only qualm is that the puzzles are all very practical puzzles, about how accurately you can throw this, virtual bomb fruit across the room and have your duplicate catch it, only to throw it as an explodinator before, it explodes. So, while it's an interesting, concept, it's kind of repetitive. The following morning, I woke up at 7:30 from my mech lab. No. Worked on my brass piece for 2 hours and 30 minutes before bringing it out of tolerance, and thus having to buy a new piece and call it quits for the day. I then ate some food and watched some anime, did some work, did some homework, till Ratio, where Alan didn't show because he was sick. So Liam and I did the anime quizzes, and this random dude that I haven't seen since joined in. He did horribly though. But he did give me an interesting anime recommendation, so I'll look into watching that at some point. I then went on a run in the CSU gym, listened to more of my weird audiobooks, and watched an anime episode before going to bed. The following morning was school, the typical routine. 'Twas upon this day I deemed my car officially fixed. Because for a bit there, it seemed like it was still leaking coolant, but I think the radiator was just sorting out all the air bubbles from a flush. I then joined the Southgate friends, aka Sam, Noah, Benj, Joe, and in this case Jake, for a mini pre-release. See, since Noah didn't get to participate, but mostly because Joe got garbage pulls and was salty, Joe organized a second, just with us, pre-release event where we bought a bunch of deck boxes, and we all paid him back, of course. And we had a mini tournament and everything. I built a 4-color deck with 10 pieces of land, which, for those of you that are not aware, is an abysmally low amount of land. And I actually did pretty well. I mean, I lost the tournament, but the deck still did pretty well. So yeah, it was a pretty good time. Next morning, I tried to make my brass piece once again, and once again, I failed. I then had a slower morning since I failed early in the process, unlike last time. And at work, my boss, Jess, was in a really bad mood, and so I had to work very hard to try not step on her toes. And I only kind of succeeded. I will tell you, hypersensitive and emotional females that can fire you at will are very scary, and also very good stress inducers. After that, I took a statics test. For some reason, I actually always call that class statistics. I mean, I know it's not because it's in the same professor that taught me statics. But, to this day, I just call it statistics whenever I talk about it. It's a problem. After dynamics, that's the class, not a statics test. I then did CAD work in the computer lab for a few hours. After that, I got myself a Wendy's burger, went to Magic Club. The first game was super slow and painful, but the second was probably the funnest game of Magic I've ever had at Magic Club. So yeah, like I said, there are exceptions, and sometimes I really do enjoy my time there. I finished that whole event at 11:30. School and lab, the procedure, however. After that, I studied for a metrology exam, which was literally an exam about how well you can measure stuff. You would be surprised at just how many different metrology tools there are and just how hard it is to use them within a thou. Now that I think about it, though, it's pretty cool that I have an exam for a class where I'm literally tested on how to measure stuff. It's a weird exam. You get given a chunk of metal and they're like, how long is it? Never thought I'd be taking these kind of tests when I was in high school. See, that's the one nice thing about reaching this point in my education. Sure, it's genuinely hard, but also, everything I'm learning, I'm genuinely interested in learning. So I can also see, the practical application. School is definitely way better when you don't have to take, Spanish just because some dumb requirement says so. Anyway, after studying for the metrology exam, I then went and did work. Got some singing training in with Sydney, then hung out with Neil and her. After that, I did homework before coming home to help Grace with her math for a while before watching an episode of anime and going to bed. The next day, I woke up early for my tool crib shift. I guess I haven't really explained that yet, but I basically have this tool crib thing where all of us Mech 200 students have to check out tools to each other, and if you don't do your 3 shifts, you fail the class. Side note, but a lot of my courses have this really dumb thing about certain requirements. You miss 3 labs, you auto-fail the class. You miss a tool crib shift, you fail the class. I mean, etc. Sure, it's motivating, but I also feel like I'm reading Aquinas on sins. It's you thought about maybe possibly taking that homeless man's bread? Death. Anyway, aside from disproportionate punishment associated with the tool crib shift thing, the other thing that's really dumb is you literally do nothing while you're in there. So you're supposed to make sure the students checking cleaned and nice tools, but no one actually tells you off if you don't because they're all just forced to be here, and thereby no one cares inherently. And we, care more about our relationships with our fellow classmates than the state of brass chips and a drill bit. Plus, we all have been to the tool crib before, and we all know what the person is supposed to be checking and has absolutely no qualifications. So there's not any authority either. It's an illusion of authority. One time a student returned some stuff that wasn't clean, and I, being a little good crib manager, was like, hey, could you clean this? And they were basically no, and walked away. What are you supposed to do in that situation? So yeah, the tool crib is dumb, but nevertheless, because otherwise threatened by failing the class, I attended my shift. I then did more study on the metrology exam, which bears mentioning is also unique in that they give you access to pieces of metal you're supposed to measure and tools to measure them a week in advance. So yeah, you can just write down whatever values you want and use them for the actual exam. You can just take the exam before the exam. So it's kind of like getting a test week, the test a week before the test day and being told you can try your best and find the answers beforehand. And you would think that would make you do well, but nope, I got a 70, even when I studied it for a ton and triple checked my answers. And I think that was just pretty close to the average as well. But I'm getting ahead of myself. On this day, I just studied for the exam. After studying at work, which is normal, I then did classes, studied for more of the measurement exam, and then, because I was tired, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do my dynamics homework, and so I just did it instead of actually doing it. And so I watched an anime movie with the fam called Wolf Children, which was actually pretty good. I then caught up with Jordan Bartley for a while, which was the bueno, before watching a bit of anime and then going to bed. The next morning, I woke up and picked up Braden, where we grabbed food and walked across a frozen over river. However, because I wasn't confident the ice would hold, I did it barefoot, and it turns out the ice was very cold. Who would have thunk? We then hiked up the airsoft canyon some and found this good rock to eat food on and listen to music on, and it was actually a really nice time. However, as I was climbing up the very last bit of the rock, I jumped and straight whacked my knee into the rock, and it still hurts to this day, so clearly a regrettable mistake. Still, I was able to enjoy the nice day, and it was really good instrumental music, even if Braden didn't vibe as much. That's how I came up with the idea to invite others to vibe sessions with me. But yeah, it was a really relaxing and very fantastic day, except for my knee hurt. That made it worse, and so we called it a little bit early. After that, me and him played some Magic, ate some food, and I went to join on the Christi dodgeball night. And I mean, first off, I'm surprised they actually did a dodgeball night, but second, it was a total blast. And I don't think I'm the only one that thought that. I think we all loved it, especially me though, because I was the best. See, among nerds, I am an athletic god. I also played in this very itchy bunny head, which was also fun. Wish I had a picture of that. Once I got home, I played some Catan with the fam, took a bath, and watched some good anime. The day thereafter, I attended church, played Magic with Joe. We did some 1v1s while the others played in the group. Played D&D, took Neo and Sydney out for dinner with John after D&D as a thank you for all the times they've given us food. However, basically everything was closed, and we ended up just getting them boba and Wendy's instead of something nice. Also, I got boba, but the boba tasted exactly like those hard banana candies that they use like at malls. The one where you have to like put in a quarter and they give you like a handful of assorted fruit candies. I know there's like 2 of you in existence that remember those. But if you are one of those 2, I'm sure your spirit just thanked me. Man, I haven't thought about those candies in like 10 years. Isn't that strange? To realize you haven't thought a thought like in literally 10 years. And to be fair, it's not like it's been... I'm not sure it's been 10 years, but I feel fairly confident that hardened mall banana candy has not been on the forefront of my mind for quite some time. Anyway, all this is basically beside the point and holistically relevant, but it's relevant to me! And since this is my life with email, that's all that really matters. So yeah, the dinner was pretty much a flop. The boba was super gross, and yeah, the event kind of ended on a low note. But hey, at least we tried. Too bad the thought doesn't count so much as to make your boba not taste like banana candy. Once I got home, I finished the anime I was on. I then searched for a new anime, which, to be fair, was surprisingly difficult with the sketchiness standards I have. And then I slept. The next day, I woke up early on Monday to do work for my brass piece. However, once again, I brought it out of tolerance and thus had to buy a new piece of stock. I then got a little time to eat, went to work, had classes before doing more work, and then homework till Ratio, wherein Alan and I fought some more. And it was possibly one of the most frustrating conversations I've had with him because my perspective is he's just being dumb. Like, I get when there are, like, fundamental metaphysical truths that you can't really go lower on, but it seems like he's denying the equivalent of 2 + 2 is 4. Like, I know he felt he was doing the same. I felt like I was doing the same, but it was very frustrating. Like, how do you convince someone 2 + 2 is 4? It's immensely frustrating, I assure you. Here's the whiteboard. Once we called it quits for that conversation, I then watched a bit of anime before going home and sleeping. The next day was just a normal school routine. I started watching The Promised Neverland with Benj, where we got about halfway through. We then went out and played Pokemon Go and rollerblades, because that's just so more efficient that way. However, I got pretty cold. By the time we got home, we didn't really have time to finish the anime, so I joined Ben in doing a bit more Pokemon in the car before I called it a night. Also got super car sick, so that was a big part of it. The next day, I finished my brass piece after 4 tries, which was epic. I then got math tutoring, went home for food and anime, and did the usual school stuff. I then had a brief respite at home before I was technically supposed to get CPR certified, but they canceled, so that was lame. See, I technically have to get CPR certified to work in the HPCRL, even though I've been working down there for like 6 months without being certified. So I showed up, the training diligently, and it was canceled. So yeah, that was a bit of a bummer. Since the training was canceled, I then headed back and hung out with Neo and Sydney. At that point, I was pleasantly surprised to discover that Neo had finally unpacked all the boxes and finished moving in. And yeah, we watched some Moria the Patriot. Both of them seemed to really be liking that quite a bit. And then I went to Magic Club and got to sleep at 1. The following Tuesday was the occasion of the preview for ECE, the class that I failed last semester, so I was absolutely determined to get a perfect score. However, despite triple checking my work, I did not in fact get a perfect score, and I instead got 1 question wrong, just like the semester before, so that was really discouraging. I then had a long time to chill at home before going back to campus to take a measurement test I already talked about. It was during this time that one girl, Leanne, just randomly came up and asked to work with me. Ever since then, she's been really friendly, like suspiciously friendly. So perhaps I'm wrong, but my current theory is she likes me. Now, to be fair, the number of girls I've known to have liked me before this point is exactly 2, which means if I'm right, there's a 66% chance that this is increasing the number of girls that have found me attractive. Now, that sort of increase is both disturbing and flattering. Flattering because, let's be honest, who doesn't want to be seen as attractive? But disturbing because that's deeply, inconvenient, and I don't know how to deal with the situation. The few of you that remember how I dealt with the last time the girl told me she liked me know what I'm talking about. Hence, I tried to play it cool, classic apathetic anime character. See, ironically, I then like try to find a picture of the classic apathetic anime character, and preferably with the pose that they're like leaning behind their hands behind their head as they walk. But anyone who's watched anime knows what I mean. But I spent like 10 minutes and I couldn't find a good picture, so I've just abandoned the idea. And now you won't get a picture. Feel sad. I think my method worked. Regardless, it was kind of necessary because she was pretty uptight. So we kind of like balanced each other out. So yeah, we managed to get our work done. And like I said before, we got a 70. So obviously didn't do very well. I still think I navigated that pretty well though. However, there was one other moment worth noting, which was that as we were about to start the test and we had teamed up, she turned to me and she said, "Hey, can I ask you only to be cut off at that exact moment by one of the EMEC guys giving an announcement." So we all know to blave means to bluff. So we were playing a game of cards, and I cheated. Sorry, that quote just like plugged into my head, so I had to include it. Take two. But as we all know, can I ask you means can I ask you a personal question, which further means I was literally saved by the bell. Well, in this case, the bell plus announcement. But there is an actual bell they ring, when they want to make an announcement. So there you have it. The closest thing I've had to a romantic life since my 2 accidental dates, which I still can't believe I did that. After that, I then went to work, did voice training with Sydney, hung out with her and Neo, and then both of them came over to the engineering building with me while I did CAD work, and she did teaching stuff. After I got that done, we came back to Neo's, and I built Legos, which was surprisingly fun. Like, sure, I use big boy toys now, but going back to Lego is still pretty enjoyable. Here's what I made. Neo made the sword, and the shield was rushed, so it's not my finest build by all means, but it was fun. I always have thought like building custom torsos for Bionicle was impressive, and I really did do well in that one. I'm pretty happy in that regard. During that whole time we built Lego, I talked about absolutely nothing and everything simultaneously. The conversation went something like this. Me. So, how about those murder hornets? Neo. Yeah, I feel like they could use a bit more sauce. Me. I agree. But what flavor? Neo. Pie flavor. Me. Yeah. And yep, that's how the conversation went for like 3 straight hours. It was actually super fun. I don't know when I started having these sort of like ludicrous conversations where the intention is like to derail all trains of thought. But looking back, I can think of quite a few occasions where I've had very similar talks. And so it must just be something I do. Anyway, I really enjoyed that time. After we all finished that, I then went home and went to sleep. The following day, I worked on training for work down the HP Serial. See, unfortunately, it looks like I've been commandeered to become an entry data minion, which is mega no bueno because, my consistent lack of work weather front I've experienced thus far at my balmy desk is about to shift to a frigid, always work storm, which, as we all know, is not good for one's health. After that, in my gap between work and school, I did some small stuff that I needed to do. At the work school stuff, when the work school stuff was done, I walked over to CSU with Ben and did some Pokemon. Then, upon getting back, had Yum Yums with the fam to celebrate my birthday. I'm now the ripe age of 22. And we ate that while watching this anime movie called Garden of Words, which was pretty good. I don't know about the storyline, but the animation was god level. We then went to the summit to play laser tag. It turns out that I read their deal wrong, and it was $18 a person for unlimited laser tag and bowling, which we all deemed was overpriced. But then, in an attempt to please the people, Dad decided to just make an executive decision and get us bowling for an hour. And so, when you count in a shul rental, it turned out to be about $16 per person. So ironically, we spent basically the same amount for just 1 hour of bowling instead of unlimited bowling and laser tag and a $10 game card. So yeah, I kept that information to myself because I didn't want to make Dad feel bad. Anyway, Morgan was there, and the family and I ended up winning. I ended up winning, though Mom was actually really good, and definitely I was concerned for my title for a bit there. Overall, it was a pretty decent time, good to spend with the fam. Once we got home, I went on a rollerblade and listened to music. I really do enjoy a good rollerblade with music. Haven't done that as of late. The next day was Saturday, which meant that I had morning philosophy, but I thought it was 9 at 9 and not 8. Thus, I was late to said philosophy by like an hour, which was a bummer. However, I did make up for it with some talk. Oh, I did make it for some of the talk, and it was decent. However, I felt like I wasn't like totally understood after the talk, so that was lame. But then I worked on my philosophy paper. After finishing that, I then ate croissants and watched anime and Peace Itself with Neo and Sydney. And then after I went to Retro Christi for fun for a Saturday night activity where we all played laser tag. See, the sad thing about that though is that for fun laser tag got majorly nerfed. Like it was actually so lame. Back in my day, the whole arena was just full. Like there were multiple levels, like sphinxes you could shoot. It was epic. But now it's just like 2 little towers with a big open room. Actually, so much worse. However, when we had like borrowed game passes, there was nothing to be done. So yeah, just tried to make the best of it and played around 6 games or so. I may have had the highest score in every game. Laser tag is my jam. But, honestly, we did team round and, that's probably my favorite overall, even if it wasn't the free-for-all. Oh, the other thing is For Fun did have the Minecraft game though. So we got to play that and, Neo totally got into it. He's actually top notch as far as arcade. That it's actually a top notch game as far as arcade game go. Like whoever designed it was big smart. So yeah, did some laser tag interspersed with Minecraft arcade games, and then people started heading out. Honestly, I was pretty surprised to see how quickly like people bailed. Like we had unlimited laser tag till close, but nah, most people left after like 3 rounds. Neil and Alan would have been among them, but being the value maximizer that Sydney is, I convinced them to do a round of mini golf with us. I tried to like hype up the competitive atmosphere to add intrigue to just hitting a ball with a stick, and I think I succeeded. However, and this was actually so dumb, I lost in the end by literally 2 points. Like the whole time I thought Neil's Alan, was absolutely crushing me, but at the very end I found out, no, I was actually just 2 points behind him. So yeah, that was almost worse than just, being left in the dust. Anyway, it was a good time. After mini golf, rounded out, it was getting pretty cold, and we all agreed that we were ready to go home, so we just called it there. And I took the rare opportunity of freedom to hang out and catch up with Joe, which was good. Sunday, I went to church in the morning, played some Magic at the lunch bunch. I then attended Star Wars D&D, where I was an epic sniper. Felt very cool. I then hung out with John at his place, played some Magic games. We went on a drive through Risk Canyon, and I had one of the few deep conversations I've had with him, which was definitely good. Once we got back, I headed back home and helped Grace through some math. The next morning, I started the cycle all over again. I went in for math torture, learned some stuff, got home for my food/anime time, did work, did school, more work, did some CPR training done on video things, and then went to Ratio. Al and I once again tried to sort stuff out. However, this time, it was maximally frustrating. Actually, just painfully frustrating. I felt like I was hitting my head against a brick wall. Nevertheless, we tried. Here's our whiteboards. Boop. Oh, and then a big thing happened. Remember Sydney, the online writing friend Sydney, not Neo Sydney? Well, she finally gave me a face reveal. I had actually pushed for it for like 5 years, and then just out of the blue, she was like, hey, want to watch this video of the speech I did? And I was like, wait, for real? And of course, I was a little wary because last time she said she gave me a face reveal, she gave me a picture of her anime character that was supposed to be modeled off of her. It looked nothing like her. But this time it was legit. She actually gave me a face reveal. And let me tell you, it's a trippy experience to see a real face of a friend you've had for actually 6 years. Like, you kind of build up this mental image of a person without intending to do so, and then when you actually see them, the mental image just totally shatters. Like, not gonna lie, my mental image was very Aryan. Turns out Sydney is not that, though, and more like pseudo-Asian, and actually really pretty. I always expect nerds to be, like, on the average side of looks, so the mental image, is according. But nope, I was just wrong. So yeah, that was pretty crazy, and of course, I gave a face review in return, and she was like, yep, you look nerdier than I expected, and I'm like, yeah, that's fair. Not all of us can have Joe's shoulders, okay? Besides, I'm pretty sure they're trademarked at this point. So that was exciting. Look forward to meeting her in person someday. The following day, I did all the normal things, and then I worked on preparing myself for ECE before doing CAD work. I just finished learning how to use surfaces, and that's actually so cool. Like, I can 3D model basically any complex 3D shape, at least approximately, which is actually just epic. I then had work wherein I finished my CPR training videos, which, while tedious, did teach me a few things, so that was cool. After that, since it was Tuesday, we did typical Tuesday Night Magic, but then, since, I had pushed for it, we went out and played Pokemon Go on CSU. The change in pace itself was good, but the event really got good when we had a brilliant idea to train off of Caleb's scooter. See, Caleb, not having rollerblades, decided to rent one of the powered scooters on campus. However, since 3 of the other 4 of us did have rollerblades, one of us decided to hitch a ride on a scooter, and it was at this point that all of us simultaneously realized we could make a train. Thus, Noah hopped on the scooter with Caleb, and Joe hung on to Noah, and I hung on to Joe, and Bench hung on to me, and we all just trained around campus. It was actually fantastic. The scooter was totally a champ. We just had, a few wrecks, though, in the process, and no one was seriously hurt. However, at the tail end, we were, had a bit of a more serious wreck, and that kind of, brought the event to a close. Still, it was actually so much fun. That's the kind of stuff I wish we did more often. Stuff that's, memorable and different, and that's fun because of the people, not just because of the activity that entertains us. Anyway, it was a really good time. And once we got back, we rounded the night with some Brawlhalla, which, given the night had met my requirements for eventfulness, I did not mind that one too much. The next day was big cold, nearly as cold as the frost and chill blessing the Lord day. However, the day before, I was sure it would be a snow day, but it wasn't. And honestly, it was just what? You 100% expected, and then nothing happens, it's just mega sad. I'm still so salty. They called it snow day the one day after school started, but you know what? Who decides these things? I don't know. They're dumb. So yeah, it wasn't a snow day, but I was like, you don't control me, unless I took a snow morning anyway. Basically, I did a relaxing vibe session with Grace next to the fire, and it was really nice. Grace had a hard time getting into it, but I feel like she might, really benefit from just stopping and listening to instrumental music once in a while. She also theorized that if it were her own instrumental music, she would be much more enthralled. Regardless, it was a great way to spend the morning. I then did all the stuff, and once again showed up to the in-person CPR training, only for it to be canceled again, which was a real bummer, because without CPR certifications, they wouldn't give me keycard access to the HPCRL, so I just had to wait by the door until someone came in or out just to, get into work on Fridays. So anyway, once I got home, I watched the I Want to Eat Your Pancreas movie with the family. Basically an anime movie about a girl who has pancreatic cancer and this guy falls in love with her. Honestly, I was hyped up a lot, but the girl was super pushy and kind of annoying. Like, I wasn't really sad she was dying. The rest of the family felt similarly. Anyway, now I can say I've watched it, and afterward I went to Venture Club and was there till late. The next morning was actually so cold, like the coldest I've ever seen Colorado. I think it was like negative 18. And since I have to bike to class and add that with wind chill, my lips like actually got frostbite biking between classes. Thus I decided I would skip classes that frigid morning, and one class was canceled beside. And so I just didn't go to school that morning. One of the benefits of being a college student is you can decide how many classes you attend, and that's up to you. However, it's not like, oh, I just watched anime. Instead, I spent like 2 hours studying for my Diffie-Q midterm. And after that, I then watched an hour of anime because, I was like, I can do that. And then I went over to campus for work and did my CAD stuff before going to the EMEC for my lab. Around this time, I started to feel the squeeze concerning my clock project for Mech 200B. See, the clock has 3 pieces, a brass, a steel, and an aluminum piece. As I had already stated or mentioned, I had to take quite a few tries for my brass piece to be done. And I still had 2 more pieces to go, and only 2 weeks to do both of them. So I was like, uh-oh. I then had work, after which I went and took my Diffie-Q test, and man, that was hard. At the start, even though I studied, I just froze up and was like, yeah, I don't know how to do any of this. But thankfully, like, a third of the way through, like, things clicked, and I was like, okay, actually, I do know how to do this. And that's how I was able to push through it, and, I was working on problems till the very last minute. Everyone did absolutely garbage on the test. Like, our average was a 63. I got a 70, which was, like, above 75% of the class, but still, like, it was a 70. Thankfully, the grade was later curved, so I got an 80, but even then, what can you do, right? I came home to relax. There was a fire burning. Mom made sugar-free cake, and that still tasted really good. And I spent the rest of the night building a magic deck. It was very nice. The next day at the EMEC, I actually, for realsies, finished my brass piece. Before all the dimensions were finished, but I had to, like, sand it and chamfer it and stuff. I then worked on CAD stuff and went home for food. And then I tried to go to work, but this time I wasn't able to catch the door, so I was locked out of work for 30 minutes until Kaizen, one of my coworkers, helped me out and found me a way in. I mean, I felt bad because there were, like, a pile of people at the front door also waiting to be let in. I was the one that was supposed to let them in, but what could I do? I mean, I think it's pretty dumb to tell someone to watch over a building and make sure everyone gets in, but then not give them the key in. So while the whole event sucked, I did the best I could, so it wasn't really on me. After work, I went to dynamics class, and then after class, I hung out with Neo till like 5 or so. We played some Magic games. I then walked around and talked with William the Great. He's basically stored up a bunch of philosophical questions, and so we went through them one by one. That man is actually the best. With the exception of William, no one ever asked me philosophical questions that are on their mind, even though I'm pretty sure they all know I probably have thought through them and have some pretty decent answers. I mean, I used to find that more annoying than I do now, mostly because I've realized people, not taking advantage of my knowledge gives me a whole lot less work. But still, the fact that William is the only one in the last few months that utilized me as a resource just shows me how, like, pitiful people are. Except for William, of course. He's anti-pitiful. So yeah, that was good. We caught up a bit too. After that, I had to go and meet Benj at the Jameses, where we played Magic while others watched a movie. Once I got home from that, I then started a super good slice of life anime. Ended up making a 9, actually. Thus, it's the 6th 9 out of the 144 animes I've completed. So yeah, that was quite an achievement. The next morning was Saturday. Not gonna lie, the really good anime kind of sucked me in a bit, and I did get stuff done, but I watched that excessively. I did things like laundry and cleaning, and at the tail end of that, I started to feel sick, so that was a bit of a sad. Thus, I took a nap. That's how I know I'm sick. If I can actually fall asleep, then I must be sick, because I can't take a nap otherwise. I then took it easy for the rest of the day. Did more anime. Then Mom and I watched a super dumb alien time travel movie. See, I have a problem. I compulsively watch time travel movies. If done right, time travel movies can be so cool, like maximally cool. But see, the thing is, it's almost never done right. In fact, the very fact the movie's purpose is time travel almost guarantees it will be garbage. But every time, without fail, I always think, maybe this one will be different. And only twice have I been right about that. But still, those 2 movies were just so good, I kept on coming back in hopes there might be another day that a really good time travel movie out there I just haven't seen yet finds me. And maybe there is. But I assure you, the movie Mom and I watched was not it. Pure garbage. I actually don't know how those movies get funding. See, live-action movies just aren't good in comparison to anime movies in general, but this show is just bad compared to other live-action movies. Just blah. Next morning was almost entirely Magic deck building. I still wasn't feeling great, so I just took the whole day to look through the cards and watch anime. And it was honestly really weird to take the whole day just not doing much. Like, I'm always doing things, but being sick gave me the first break I've had in ages, so it was kind of nice. Maybe I should get sick more often. At that point in the day, I went on meandering a blade around City Park while the weather was just so nice. I then watched 86 with Mom, and she really liked the show. After that, I went to sleep at like 10 or so, and I felt pretty tired for the whole day. The next morning was Monday, and since I didn't have to get up early, I didn't, and I went to work and school, but I felt crummy, so by the time I got home, I kind of just like collapsed. I then looked through every artifact in Magic the Gathering. A very long and tedious task, I will say. And then we had a mini birthday celebration because I turned 22 for reals, aka it was the actual date of my birth. Mom gave me some cash, which I used to fund my Ultimate Magic deck, and that deck has been actually fantastic. So it's been a really chill birthday, but nevertheless, it was good. And after that, I watched some anime before going to bed. I still felt sick the day after, but nevertheless a bit better. I went to classes, got home early, worked on my Ulta deck some, did math, did CAD work in the lab before going to James, since I was operable at this point, though not beta. We played some Magic, did a bit of Brawl, then we split into Pokemon and world building groups. And man, I actually had such a good time. Like, just using your imagination to come up with fictional races and peoples and cultures is like so much fun. It was one of the funnest things I've done in ages. Once people got back, we played some high-powered games of Magic with my blue deck, trying to control the win on turn 5 and 6 decks. I only won once. And that was the day. The next morning, I spent working on my aluminum clock base, and I didn't mess up, so that was nice. I then booked tickets for New Zealand. Well, technically Australia, but, I need to get to Australia so I can get to New Zealand. And I got a really good deal. I'm feeling mostly better at this point. So the rest of the school day was pretty normal. I then hung out with Neo and showed him A Silent Voice. Actually the best anime ever. A true masterpiece. Despite not being an anime fan, Neo gave it a 9 by the end of it, and it's actually just that good. After that, Neo and I 1v1 Magic until 12:30, and it was great. The next day was Thursday, which started off with an ECE midterm. Now, if you remember, this is the class that I'm retaking from last semester, and last semester, despite thinking I would do really well, I got like a 50 or something on this test. So as you might expect, this is a really big deal, especially because after this, I don't get another chance. Hence, it was a pretty tense test, and honestly, walking away, I was sure I got like a 60, maybe a 70. However, I actually got a 91, so that was epic. I mean, I was way more surprised than anyone, but in no way am I complaining. That's actually such a fantastic score, especially because the class average was a 64. Man, actually such a blessing, especially because I thought I'd done so much worse. Not gonna lie, once I saw that score, I did a double take, so I was like, there's no way. But it's true, I got a literal 91. Take that, ECE! But of course, I didn't know this wonderful fact yet, and so I walked away pretty discouraged. I then had Mech 200A, did chores at home, attended my mech lab where I got a tutorial with a acetylene torch, and while I don't remember myself being a pyromaniac, I must say, once the fire starts, I was noticeably more attentive. Maybe it's just an inherent guy thing. Fire's just epic. So yeah, I think that I was much more attentive to that lab demo. After that, I did my work shift and walked over to Sydney's for voice typing. Not typing training, but it turned out that she had teacher things to do. Thus, I had to take 2 hours to kill, and I just saw this fenced off area and I was like, well, I want to get in there. I can almost guarantee if the goalie hadn't been fenced off, I wouldn't have thought that. But, it was basically begging to be invaded. So yeah, I wandered through the fenced off goalies, listening to good and smell music for the next hour and a half, and it was actually super, super nice. This is the sort of thing I used to do all the time when I was younger, and it really, since I came back to the US, I just haven't really done it much. I used to wander around places, exploring, mapping out neighborhoods and streets in my mind, and listening to music that I enjoyed. So yeah, the activity was kind of like a blast from the past, and I determined that I should really do stuff like that more often. Man, it was just so refreshed. I felt like I really, really enjoyed that time. I know it's kind of dumb, but activities like that are just so much more rewarding for me than they should be. Objectively, there are far more interesting things to do. But whatever, it's just how I work. Also, I got to read graffiti under the bridge, and people who do graffiti really don't like cops. Just gonna say. So yeah, spent a good chunk of time walking through the goalies and listening to chill music. I then got a Wendy's burger, because why not? And then Cindy and Neo finally came home from teacher things. At that point, it was 8 or something, so we decided to do no voice typing training. Voice training. Also, my voice hadn't totally recovered from being sick. So I then just talked with Cindy some before she joined me over to the engineering building, and we both did our respective homeworks. I didn't get it all done, but, I could tell she was feeling done, so I called her early. And we headed back, and we played this Fireboy Water Girl game equivalent. And it was actually a lot of fun. It's like teamwork puzzle games. After that, I went home and went to sleep. Next morning, I tried to do the EMAC work on my parts, but every machine was taken, and there was a line, so I ended up just coming home. I then felt sick to my stomach, and at this point, I theorized it was because of the pressure. Namely, that I had to get 2 parts done in 1 week, and I couldn't even get on a machine. So I do think that's pretty dumb. There should be some sort of reservation system or something. Anyway, I took a bath and watched some anime to calm myself down. I felt better after that. I then did all the school things, though I skipped my dynamics and DiffyQ classes in hopes that I would get time on the machine, but everything was taken on that, so that super sucked. So instead, I went to the ground floor of the engineering building and got my CAD work done before checking again, and everything was still taken. At that point, I was like, well, I guess there's nothing to do but go home, so that's what I did. I then spent the rest of the day working on my Ultimate Magic deck before going to sleep. The next Saturday morning was a philosophy morning wherein I had a vexing talk with Matt about truth making. I've had a hard time communicating with Matt in general, but this was like death. So I was kind of just like, yeah, this isn't profitable, but in a really nice way. Then around 1:30 in the afternoon, I finished my Ultimate Magic deck and ordered the cards. From there, I went to see Grace's play, which was pretty bad overall, but, I did like the last two numbers. Also, there was this one kid that just like full sent it. That kid was great. By far my favorite. Mom then got me a Wendy's burger on the way back, and then once I got back, I went to work assembling this desk Mom bought me. I actually enjoyed that process. It was kind of like big Legos. Thereafter, I cleaned, reorganized some stuff, watched the show that Mom liked with Mom and the family, and then headed over to Neo's house to play more of the Fireboard Water Girl game with Sydney, and that was the day. The next day was pretty standard, Sunday stuff, church, magic, D&D, and then went to attend Alan's mandatory house party, but I was the only one that showed up, so yeah, we just played some Halo till Neo and Sydney were persuaded to come. Then, once they got there, we played a game of Catan, and Sydney took the game. Then, once I got home, Ben spontaneously invited me for a drive, and so we did that, and we talked, and it was good. Monday, I woke up really early to try and get a spot on the machine at the EMEC, but there were already 11 people there, and there were 11 machines, and then 5 more showed up. And the trouble is, they didn't form a line. It's just kind of whoever can push their way to the front gets the machine. So after waiting for like 15 so minutes, I'm seeing more and more people show up. I decided to just leave because the only way I was going to get a machine is if I pushed harder than everyone else, and I just wasn't going to do that. Thus, with my morning still before me, I went on a run and did quiet time. At this point, I kind of just like resolved myself to my fate. If I got a clock done, I got it done. I would do my best, and I can't do more than that. I've been sacrificing all the things that are really important, like quiet time and exercise, and like, time to rest for school. But if I'd like taken this all or nothing dogmatic approach, then it's like, well, if I can't do it right, then I shouldn't do it at all. But even if school means I can't do like my routines, I can still take the odd gaps and fill them with the things I care about. Basically, being unable to do schoolwork has demanded of me, has kind of reminded me that, yeah, external circumstances really are beyond my control. And it doesn't mean I should just like give up, but I need a better perspective where I need to be more holistic. I then watched some Magic the Gathering rules videos, so I now understand the game better. After which I had classes work and finally found out my EC grade, so that was absolutely great. After that, I went to Ratio Christi, where Alan and I started a conversation, but we were told to rejoin the group for the announcements, so we didn't get to finish, and thus I didn't get any whiteboard pictures. Basically, Noah just announced the whole Ratio Christi group he's addicted to porn, and really needs to fix this area of his life, so he's going to drop everything and just try and break free of that addiction. Honestly, super cool move, like very gutsy and thereby respectable. However, I'm not sure the Ratio Christian group deserved that level of honesty and vulnerability. But regardless, after that, Alan and I really couldn't go back to fighting about if cats are themselves. So we kind of called it there. So yeah, instead, Trip Noah, and I left early and went on a drive and talked about some stuff and just caught up. And yeah, that was the night. The following Tuesday, I had EC, but not Mech 200A, and thus I was able to use that time to actually get on the one open machine down the EMEC. I then had a class, but Alan messaged me through Discord about the stuff we were talking about, and so I ended up having a text debate with him for the next 3 hours or so as the class went on around me. So yeah, I didn't learn any diffic nor did I get any CAD work done. So it was poor use of time management. Then, once again, since it was Tuesday, I went to Joe's and we did Magic, world building, and some Pokemon. And also, once again, the world building was just fantastic. I got math tutoring Wednesday morning, did the school things, aced my CAD work, and also felt really cool since I was able to model some really cool stuff. And then spent the rest of the day at Magic Club where I appointed some random dude to leadership, crossing my fingers he'll take the president position from me. The next morning I did math, rode in the car that Ben got lent him from Toyota to make an animation for. Honestly, not that cool, just new and modern, so only cool by the comparison to the cars that we drive. I then ate food and watched an episode of anime before going to math tutoring and then getting my EMEC lab done. Some of it. And getting some more work on my clock base finished. I then had work, after which I went to Neo and Sydney's and did this voice game called One Hand Clapping with Sydney, which was actually pretty fun. After that, I did the usual food and anime thing with Neo, and we ate so many jalapeno popper peppers. Like, so many. After that, I brought over my Magic card bulk, and we just looked through each other's bulk, and Neo had some seriously good cards. Like, man, I definitely think he got the better of the deal with cards. The next morning, I slept in, did some quiet time, got some more training on how to do data entry for the HPCRL, which is mega sad because I'm going to miss my days of getting paid to do nothing. Well, homework. After work, I really didn't pay attention in dynamics since, it was just the cusp of spring break. Instead, I did homework that I had to do. I then skipped math and went to the EMEC, finding a machine open, which was a big yay. So I got more work done on my aluminum part. Once I got home, I don't remember exactly why, but I started talking to ChatGPT. Though to be honest, I'm a little underwhelmed. I don't know, it's talked up as this hyper-intelligent, all-knowing AI, but definitely gave me some false information. I mean, impressive, don't get me wrong, but not as impressive as I thought it would be. After I asked enough questions that kicked me out, I had food with Mom and Grace before going over to Neo's again, finishing looking through all of his book, and then spending the entire rest of the time revising my decks. The next morning I woke up, got a bit of work done on this life update. I then went to the EMEC for a reservation-based work session that some of the TAs were generous enough to put together, and I absolutely crushed it. Like, those 4 hours, I worked so efficiently, I didn't make a single mistake. I can't believe how smooth it all went. And to my amazement, I was able to finish the entire clock project in 4 hours. It was actually such a relief to get that done, and I totally felt like a beast. I then worked more on writing the life demo, did Magic with Benj, with mostly alternate constructed version of my Magic Ultimate deck, but he crushed me. And then we finished the Promised Time event, which he rated a 9, and justifiably so. I forgot how good that anime was. After that, I went over Joe's, and we played Magic till 2:40 in the morning, though due to the time change, it was technically 3:40. Apparently, this is the last spring forward to ever exist, though I guess that's kind of monumental. I don't know. So yeah, I did that because I could, and it was kind of like a spring break flex, and it was a good time. The next morning, I slept in because sleep deprivation. Thus, I came in late to church. However, I did get to play some Magic, and to my disappointment, my Ultimate Magic deck did not do great. Then after church, I taught John how to do an oil change on his car, and we also ended up flushing his coolant, which took way too long because I was just dumb and didn't think to check if his car actually needed coolant before we went to Walmart to get the oil stuff, nor did I think that his car might take more coolant than mine. So yeah, overall, it was like a 4 hour and 30-minute endeavor, and I was pretty exhausted by the end of it. But from the sounds of it, we got it all done, and we did it right, so, that was good. Nothing worse than a broken repair. I then did another 2 hours or so of work on this live game before asking Joe to come over and vindicate my ultimate deck. Thankfully, it did much better in those games and lived up to my expectations. The next morning, I was on spring break, so the freedom was real, and hence, we did a makeup D&D session starting at 12 and going to 3 or so, which was good. I then hung out with Dad, got 5 guys, talked, and played some table tennis. I beat him 2 out of the 3 games, but the game I lost pretty darn badly, so we might say it equals out in the end. I then did more Life of Dayton work before driving to Loveland to hang out with Alan and Liam and watch an anime movie. During that time, we decided to get cookies, and I got this ice cream sandwich cookie. And despite eating that cookie as slow as I could, the sugar still made me feel horrible. Like I actually felt pretty garbage coming home. Though I'm not entirely complaining, as you know, I don't want to really start eating sugar again, so if it makes you feel bad, that's extra reinforcement for my resolve. However, overall the time was meh at best. The conversations were pretty meaningless. It was kind of awkward, and we also watched this video about how harem animes are, and that was beyond my standards. I asked them to stop it, but they either didn't hear or didn't listen, so I just looked at my phone and tried to listen the whole time. There were some good parts, of the hangout, but don't get me wrong, overall, not a very good time. Once I got home, I went on a drive with Ben in his super fancy car, and we got up to 120 miles per hour, so that was fun. And then, of course, I probably went to sleep. Yesterday, I did a bit of Life of Day work, and then spent the rest of the day playing Magic to Joe's. 12 straight hours of Magic. I kid you not. I honestly kind of regret having spent the whole day doing that, but the past is the past, and I can't do anything about it. And that's it! All of today, I've just worked on completing this behemoth of an email. I guarantee this took the record. Let's see how long this bad boy is. Yeah, by a landslide. 17,500 words. That's actually so long. Gosh, I had not intend to put this off for so long, but I've been so packed with school, I just didn't have time. So, regardless, I've done it, and you now have one chunky email. You're welcome.